With broken hands and withered souls, emancipated from all you know. You got to go and dig those holes. You got to go and dig those holes. You got to go and dig those holes.
Yo, what's up? I'm X. I run Perspective Reports, your world strategized.
He's heating
today
up!
We're breaking down the Holes movie from a business perspective. You read the title off the bat. This is a classic. We had the DVD growing up. Every road trip, this thing got beat up. I'm telling you, I love the intro. Just that sand orange on the Walt Disney logo and the flare going up and over the Magic Kingdom. That's just tough. And of course, that song on the intro, dig it up. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fun. Let's get it. You got to go. So right off the bat, we're here. We're watching them dig holes. It's that overlay intro shot. We get the sky view. What's happening? Oh, wait. It's a rattlesnake. We at the point where Barf Bag is getting bit by a rattlesnake. So according to Google, Dr. Google, anti-venom treatment with a single vial costing anywhere from $1,200 to over $15,000. The total cost of a snakebite treatment, including multiple vials of anti-venom, hospital stay, and other medical care, can range from tens of thousands to nearly $300,000. Through the patient's out-of-pocket expense, depends heavily on their insurance coverage. So basically, snakebite costs between $1,200 to $300,000. So I hope Barf Bag has really good insurance, because man, that is expensive. So we have the police bringing Stanley back to his apartment, and I love this guy coming in saying, "This whole place smells like feet," because those old apartments, I feel for you. I understand. City living, it ain't easy sometimes. And you smell people cooking, what they're doing. And we have to assume too, this apartment that they're living in, it has to be like at least a 2-bed, 2-bath, because I think Stanley and his grandpa are sharing a room. Obviously, mom and dad must be sharing a room, and they're living in this laboratory experiment, doing all this, feet stuff, shoe smelling, experiment. But still, I looked it up, and the average apartment rent in 2003 when this movie came out in Houston was $719. That is a crazy price. Think about that, 700. So no wonder he can support his family on shekels from his lab experiments for the perfect shoe odor. But let's not be sexist. Maybe Stanley's mom is rolling in the dough. She could be like a trial lawyer or a department store manager, anything. Really. One of my favorite little scenes is Stanley yelling at, "Please stand up." That's what the judge says. And then all, the dad, the grandfather, and Stanley are all named Stanley Yelnats. And little joke that says he can send him to jail, which is kind of crazy for stealing shoes. Clyde Livingston, the baseball player who Stanley allegedly stole the shoes from, were valued at over $5,000. So that would have put it in, the $2,500 to $30,000 range, which is a state jail felony. Wow, really? So basically, $2,500 and under is a misdemeanor. Anything over is a felony, and felony obviously is jail time. So they were signed Clyde Livingston shoes. So that's kind of the key. So now we finally get to Camp Green Lake, and we have this cool intro aerial shot where we see all of the holes that have been dug. And I find it interesting because, again, referencing the book, I don't know if people know, I should probably give a little backstory, kind of rushing into the movie. But this movie, Holes, is based off of a book that came out in 1998 by Louis Satcher. The young adult novel won the Newbery Medal in 1999 and was made into the Disney movie that we are now reviewing. And I bring up the book because there's a lot of differences. Some people would say, if you've read the book, I grew up in a time where the kids who didn't like reading Harry Potter read Holes, the book. And I actually liked the movie more than the books, and I read regardless. The biggest differences are that Stanley was a bigger kid in the book. He's a skinny kid played by Shia LaBeouf in the movie, right? They both take place in Texas, Green Lake. They dig holes all day. But the idea is that these kids, some sort of wider commentary on the youth juvenile penitentiary system, are being essentially rehabilitated by working hard in the Texas Sun. And in fact, referencing an article that I found for this called "In the Juvenile Justice System Part 5, Rereading Holes" by Luke Schumann on his website, which I'll link there. He speaks to the fact that the author actually said anybody who has ever tried to do yard work in Texas in July can easily imagine hell to be a place where you are required to dig a hole 5 feet deep and 5 across day after day under the brutal Texas sun. And I mean, that's pretty much punishment. I don't know much rehabilitation, but it's definitely punishment, literally in the movie. Famous line by Mr. Sir.
You're not looking for anything. You're building character. You take a bad boy, make him dig holes all day in the hot sun, and it turns him into a good boy. That's our philosophy here at Camp Green Lake.
But that's the question, because we're doing a fictional analysis on a fictional movie based on real world predicaments and situations. We can honestly look into, right, the data behind the juvenile detention center. Like, what is the cost analysis of this, right? And looking at the Texas Legislative Budget Board, it provides insight into the cash flow of a place like Camp Green Lake, because literally Stanley said,
Or jail. Well, I never been to camp before.
he's never been to camp before. And data indicates that certainly with the cost of Camp Green Lake, it really is a premium camp, just not the one you'd probably want to go to. The cost per day for holding a juvenile in a state residential facility in Texas can be as high as $456.38 to $479 every single day. A conservative estimate for a private contractor in this sector would be like $200 to $250 per inmate per day. So they're making money. The facility compromises probably around 6 tents, right? A through F, tent D, D tent, right? That's where Stanley, Caveman, all the boys are at. Assuming consistent occupancy across 6 tents, on the conservative end, annual gross that they're probably getting from all the inmates at Camp Green Lake, if everything is consistently full and they're getting constant turnover, is $3 million every year. So I guess they're looking for treasure, but they kind of have it by, the boys being there. And that's a conservative estimate. If the facility is designated as a specialized treatment center, obviously there's no treatment happening there, rates could parallel the higher state figures, pushing annual revenue closer to $6.9 million. I don't know what that lady's looking for, the warden. That brings us to the organization of Camp Green Lake. Who runs this clown show, this circus? Well, that would be the CEO, the warden, Miss Walker, played by the inimitable Sigourney Weaver of Aliens fame. She is the granddaughter or the granddaughter of the owner of the town that used to be Green Lake when it was actually a lake. And, she essentially is on this forever quest to dig up holes.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad! You keep digging it!
What can you say? Hurt people, right? And she is on a quest to find Kissin' Kate Bartlett's famous buried treasure, which was buried in the town of Camp Green Lake, which within the movie, they interweave the historic events of what happened in the 1800s of Camp Green Lake with the present day. It's actually really beautiful cinematography and storytelling. But we'll touch on who Kissin' Kate Bartlett is in a little bit, just going back to the organization. Essentially, the COO, the de facto COO of the camp, is the head of security, Mr. Sir. In the book, they kind of have this overbearing tone of there's just something not quite right about the camp, and everyone there just is kind of there because they have no other option to go. And within the movie, we kind of play to that, but we don't really get till the end that we find out that, oh yeah, Mr. Sir, he had some things going on in his past. And then of course, Dr. Pendanski acts as the director of human resources or counseling services, essentially the HR department, if you will.
Just fooling.
Yeah,
Right?
it's cool.
I saw what was going on. Go on, Stanley. Teach him a lesson. Hit him back. Yeah, teach me a lesson. Go on, hit him.
Also, the kids called Dr. Pendanski or Mr. Pendanski mom, just saying that. So, yeah. And that's another big differentiator. In the book, it is actually Mr. Pendanski, but in the movie, they switch it to Dr. Pendanski. And spoilers here with Dr. Pendanski or Mr. Pendanski, he's found out to be a fraud. He's not really a doctor. But that's kind of the whole point within the book, trying to really highlight how all of the authority figures at Camp Green Lake are people, and that's kind of the whole point there. So let's transition to the backstory of the history aspect, because again, Camp Green Lake is set in the town of Green Lake, Texas, back in the late 19th century. And essentially what we see is that there's Catherine Barlow or Kate Barlow. She's a school teacher teaching in this, one room schoolhouse, very typical American frontier West. And the owner of the town is Walker or Trout Walker, which is kind of a play on words, fish walker, trout walker. It's a lake, get it? And he stinks. Point is that this town was a once thriving little small community. There's an African-American onion farmer named Sam, who's played by Dule Hill. If you ever seen the show Psych, shout out to him. Great actor, among many things. Also, Sam is just a really cool guy. He's got a great donkey. He sells onions. He's just selling them as... And essentially, him and Kate fall in love. But of course, this is the late 19th century, segregation and all that, white, black people can't get together. And essentially one day, Trout Walker walks around, sees that Sam kisses Kate. He gets mad, a lynching happens, Sam is killed, and now we have the character kissing Kate Barlow. By the way, I mispronounced Barlow with Bartlett earlier, but that is the backstory. Also, Patricia Arquette is who plays Kate Barlow. What an amazing cast this movie has. She's a legend. And because she had the love of her life taken away from her in unjustified circumstances, she now takes revenge by robbing everybody in the West and taking money from them. And then that's why her name, Kissing Kate Barlow, comes along, because if she would have kissed you, she would have killed you.
No food for 16 days.
She'd have kissed him, she'd have killed him. Never been born.
And of course, that brings us to the central point of the movie. Everybody's trying to find the buried treasure of Kissing Kate Barlow, her buried hoard that she buried somewhere in Green Lake, Texas. And of course, the lake dried up, some sort of retribution from above for the horrible actions of killing Sam. At least that's what I'm assuming the author intends. And what we find out is that's why everyone's digging holes. They're not really doing it as some sort of rehabilitation, but it's so the warden can find this treasure. And what we find out in the backstory of the movie is that Stanley Yelnatz's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was actually robbed by Kissing Kate Barlow, and her biggest treasure is that robbery of Stanley Yelnatz's, the main character of the movie. Great-great-great-great-grandfather is actually the treasure everyone's trying to find. The whole point is we're going to value what that treasure was. And it's treasure valuation time! And we are going to figure out how much was Kissing Kate Barlow's treasure, her buried treasure that everyone's trying to find. But we find out that it's actually Stanley Yelnatz's. The first is treasure when he was moving across the country from New York to California after making it big on the stock market. So at the end of the movie, after they find the treasure, everyone's happy, celebrating. They bust open the chest and they find a bunch of treasure that's probably worth a boatload of money. But the real treasure are the stock. And in the movie, they tell us it's AT&T stock. So that means they're worth buku amount. While using some forsynic analysis by pausing the movie, we can count that there are at least 4 stock bonds that they count out. 4 worth $25,000 each. And we have this handy dandy formula behind here. FV equals PV times 1 plus R to the N power. And what does that mean? F equals future value, PV equals present value, R equals annual rate of return, N is the number of years since the investment, and 1 is the starting value of the investment. What we find out is that the dates, according to Stanley, he says that Caveman says 1905. Time 1905 to the movie coming out, 2003, that's 98 years. Plugging that into our calculation, 25,000 times 4 bonds times 1 plus 0.06, because we're going to do a 6% annual rate of return, super conservative, to the power of 98. That equals over $30 million, bro. So now we know that Stanley and Hector and their families are set for life because they have $30 million. But that makes us turn our attention back to Camp Green Lake. The warden, Miss Walker, if she was so hell-bent on finding this treasure, why didn't she invest in the technology that was available in 2003, like ground penetrating radar that would have cost between $20,000 to $50,000, like we already talked about before? We already established that the camp, to just be operating, needed to be making at least $3 to $6 million a year annually. So how could she not carve out budget for $20,000 to get radar technology to find this within a few weeks? Because that would have been $30 million. Again, don't make dollars, don't make sense. Talk about poor management. But I'm just the consulting here, people, so I'm just running the numbers. So what we have here is just classic mission drift, poor leadership from the warden. She was so focused on doing it a certain way that she didn't think to herself to bring in the technology to make it, 1, faster to find this treasure, and then 2, she didn't even realize the capital potential of their cash cow, which was the boys, the juvenile detention in the camp. And if she would have invested in the technology and not done counterintuitive measures, she could have had enough money to reinvest in the camp, have that as a passive asset, and then retired and had a management company take over. So it seems like her trauma of the past of her grandfather making her dig holes made her believe that that was the only true way to find the treasures. And we haven't even got into the regulatory compliance and liability money, right? How much would it have cost them in an OSHA audit, right? For heat stress and environmental hazards. We're talking about child labor law violations and even criminal endangerment within the Texas Penal Code. I mean, you're running around with rattlesnakes everywhere and yellow spotted lizards coming at you, which can kill you in 1 bite. I mean, that's just crazy. And on top of that, too, is just the way that they're running it. We know that Dr. Pendensky was definitely cooking those books, man. So really, really, it was kind of inconsistent to actually having a profitable business. And as we conclude the business analysis of the movie Holes, looking at the movie from a business impact, we turn our attention to the business of Sploosh, the foot odor eliminating technology the father was working the whole time to create or invent. And well, yeah, does it make sense? Do the dollars make sense for this technology? So let's look at the market fit for Sploosh. And well, foot odor products are a steady consumer healthcare segment. Think Dr. Scholl's or Gold Bond. They have a unique selling proposition. A natural peach-based formula is a distinct differentiator in a market dominated by chemical powders. And the branding, naming the product Sploosh.
Here.
What is this?
Sploosh. That's what I call it.
After Zero's name for the peaches in the movie provides a narrative hook, and the endorsement. The film establishes that Clyde Sweet Feet Livingston, who in the beginning, whose shoes are the whole propagation of the movie rights, Stanley's accused of stealing them. It turned out to actually have been Zero when he was homeless. And then, of course, in the end, we see that Clyde makes it all up with the kids. They become friends, and he decides to be the brand ambassador for Sploosh because he's seen in a commercial at the end. And well, because we see this commercial with Clyde Livingston at the end, we can actually calculate the supposed annual revenue of Sploosh because we can look at ad budget. Well, 2003, the average commercial for having an MLB All-Star 30-second ad that isn't the Super Bowl or World Series, because by that time that was already millions of dollars in 2003, is probably between $150,000 to $500,000 on the high end. And using the average amount of ad budget to revenue for companies in the CPG space, usually between 5% to 20%, the higher end range is usually for newer companies trying to get themselves established. Lower end for already established companies, we see that they could have potentially a revenue, right? Let's just say that they're spending $150,000 or $300,000. That would be a revenue of at least $2.5 million. And on the high end, let's say that they're, pretty consistent but still spending money, they could be potentially upwards of $5 to $10 million. So in the end, it looks like they made out like bandits, better revenue turnover than Camp Green Lake, which is in that $3 to $6 million range. So with them using the treasure to then invest into a solid business proposition, which Sploosh clearly is with that kind of revenue turnover, we can then surmise that Sploosh not only is a good business idea, but it actually is much more profitable than Camp Green Lake ever could be and is a growing sector. And well, that's pretty much all I got for the business analysis of the movie Holes, or at least the movie from a business impact POV, but I did want to turn your attention to one more scene, this one. And super random thing to end on, but we're having fun, so why not? That truck was a 1994 F350 XLT heavy-duty working truck, and trade-in value in 2003 probably would have been around $1,900 to $2,800. My Ford Focus, 2012 Ford Focus, got traded in 2017 for like $2,000, so Ford's aged like dust. But regardless, that front suspension and front end would have been bent in, so that would have cost at least $9,000 to $23,000 in 2003 money. But it still would have been cheaper for them to rent a ground-penetrating radar survey tool for $20,000 and found a $4 million treasure. So, makes no dollars and makes no sense over there at Camp Green Lake. So let's recap what we learned in this video analysis. Camp Green Lake has to be one of the worst-run business organizations in fictional entertainment history. Despite that, their annual revenue had to be between $3 to $6 million. Sploosh, the foot odor product made by Stanley's dad, had to have a revenue between $2.5 to $10 million annually, thanks to the investment from the Kissing Kate Barlow's buried treasure, which was actually Stanley Yelnatz's the first treasure, and just the bonds were worth $30 million, and we weren't even talking about the gold. And on top of that, the Warden missed out on $30 million because she refused to invest in ground-penetrating radar technology, which was super cheap. Do you agree with these evaluations? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Perspective Reports, your world strategized. Let's go.
We need new strategies. Let's watch Perspective Reports. 千両が通用です。